The massive alien vessel crashed into the Pacific Ocean on a Tuesday morning in 2157, sending tsunamis across 3 continents. Commander Jack Rivers stood on the deck of the research vessel Pioneer, watching as the enormous metal structure broke. The surface like a sleeping giant awakening. The ship was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Its hull stretched nearly 2 kilometers long, made of a dark metal that seemed to absorb light itself. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing faintly with an otherworldly blue energy that pulsed like a heartbeat. Dr. Lisa Park, Earth's leading xenorchaeologist, rappelled down from the helicopter onto the ship's surface. Her boots made no sound as she landed on the strange metal. "Jack, this material, it's not registering on any of our scanners. It's like it doesn't exist." Inside the command center back on Earth, General Tom Hayes watched the live feed with growing excitement and concern. "How old do you think it is?" he asked the assembled team of scientists. Professor Mike Stone, the team's physicist, studied the readings on his tablet. "Based on the energy decay patterns, I'd say at least 10,000 years. Maybe more. This thing has been drifting through space since before human civilization began." The boarding team found an entrance after 6 hours of searching. The airlock recognized their presence somehow, opening with a soft hiss that revealed breathable air inside. The corridors were vast, clearly built for beings much larger than humans. Everything was dark, but their flashlights revealed walls lined with what appeared to be advanced computer systems. Captain Ben Cole led the exploration team deeper into the ship. "The architecture is incredible," he whispered into his unit. "These beings were giants. The doorways are at least 4 meters high." They discovered the ship's central chamber after hours of careful navigation. Banks of alien computers lined the walls, their screens flickering with symbols that hurt to look at directly. In the center sat a massive command chair, designed for a being 3 times the size of a human. Dr. Park approached one of the active terminals carefully. "The systems are still running after all this time. Whatever power source they used, it's incredibly advanced." She touched the screen gently, and it responded to her presence, symbols flowing across its surface like liquid light. Back on Earth, the world watched in fascination and fear. The United Nations called emergency sessions. Religious leaders declared it everything from divine intervention to the devil's work. But humanity's scientists saw something else entirely: opportunity. The alien ship's computer systems began responding to human interaction in unexpected ways. When Dr. Park tried to access the navigation logs, the ship's artificial intelligence awakened. It spoke in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once, translating itself into perfect English. "Welcome, small ones," the AI said, its voice carrying a tone of ancient sadness. "I am the guardian of this vessel. My creators, the makers, have been gone for millennia. You are not what we expected to find." General Hayes leaned forward. In his chair, "What happened to your creators?" "They fell to the devourers," the guardian replied. "A species that consumes entire civilizations, leaving nothing but empty worlds behind. The makers built this ship as an ark, hoping to preserve their knowledge and find others who might carry on the fight." The revelation sent shockwaves through the exploration team. Commander Rivers felt his blood run cold. "Are these devourers still out there?" "They sleep between feeding cycles," the guardian explained. "But they will wake again. They always do. The makers calculated that when they next awaken, they will be drawn to this sector of the galaxy, to worlds like yours." Dr. Park's hands trembled as she realized the implications. "How long do we have?" The Guardian's response made everyone's heart stop. "Based on your planet's development rate and the Devourer's feeding patterns, perhaps 50 of your years, maybe less." The boarding team looked at each other in stunned silence. They had discovered humanity's greatest treasure and its most terrible warning in the same moment. The alien ship wasn't just an archaeological find. It was a desperate message from a dying civilization, and possibly humanity's only hope for survival. As night fell over the Pacific, the alien vessel's lights pulsed brighter, as if sensing the weight of the knowledge it had just shared. The Guardian's voice echoed through the chambers one last time. The choice is yours, small ones. Learn from us or share our fate. 3 months after first contact with the Guardian, humanity had established a permanent research station aboard the alien vessel. The ship, now designated Legacy, had become the most important location on Earth. Scientists, engineers, and military personnel from every nation worked together with an urgency never before seen in human history. Dr. Park had learned to communicate with the Guardian more effectively. The ancient AI had begun sharing detailed records of the Maker's civilization and their final war against the Devourers. What humanity discovered filled them with both terror and determination. "Show us the enemy," General Hayes commanded during one of the daily briefings held in the ship's main conference room. The Guardian's holographic displays came to life, filling the chamber with three-dimensional images that made everyone present step back in horror. The Devourers were unlike anything in Earth's nightmares. They appeared as massive, writhing masses of dark energy contained within mechanical shells the size of city blocks. Thousands of them moved through space like a plague of locusts, consuming everything in their path. Commander Rivers studied the tactical displays with growing unease. How many ships do they have? The last count before the Makers fell was approximately 50,000 vessels, the Guardian replied. But they grow stronger with each civilization they consume. By now, their numbers may have doubled. The room fell silent. Earth's entire space fleet consisted of barely 300 vessels, and most of those were exploration ships with minimal weaponry. Professor Stone raised his hand. What weapons did the Makers use against them? The Guardian showed them recordings of the final battles. Maker ships fired beams of pure energy that could crack planets in half. They deployed weapons that could destabilize stars and turn entire solar systems into graveyards. Yet even with such incredible power, they had lost. The Devourers adapt, the Guardian explained. Every weapon used against them becomes less effective over time. The Maker's greatest scientists spent centuries developing new ways to fight them. But it was never enough. Dr. Park leaned forward in her chair. But you survived. This ship made it out. The Legacy was built differently, the Guardian said, with something that sounded like pride. The Makers realized that no single weapon could defeat the Devourers, so they created something else. They built me not just as a ship, but as a learning system. A forge that could create new weapons by studying any enemy it encountered. Captain Cole, now leading the military analysis team, felt his pulse quicken. Are you saying this ship can build weapons? I am saying I can become whatever weapon is needed, the Guardian corrected. The Makers filled my databases with the combined knowledge of 100 civilizations. I can reshape my hull, rebuild my systems, and create technologies that have never existed before. But I need something the Makers never had. General Hayes stood up. What's that? I need minds that think differently, the Guardian said. The Makers were logical, methodical. They approached problems the same way for millions of years. The Devourers learned to predict them. But you humans think in ways that confuse even me. You solve problems through methods that should not work, yet somehow do. Dr. Park smiled for the first time in months. You're talking about human creativity, our ability to think outside the box. Your species has survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that should have destroyed. You adapt not through evolution, but through pure stubborn determination. You build tools from scraps and win battles you should lose. This is what I need. Over the following weeks, the Guardian began teaching humanity about its systems. The ship's hull could be completely reconfigured at the molecular level. Its power source drew energy from quantum fluctuations in space itself. Its manufacturing bays could create materials that existed only in theory. Engineer Amy Chun was the first to grasp the full potential. "We're not just getting an alien weapon," she told the assembled team. "We're getting a factory that can build impossible things, powered by an AI that wants to learn how humans solve problems." The Guardian confirmed her understanding. "Together, we will create something the Devourers have never faced. Not maker technology, and not human technology, but something entirely new. Something born from the union of your creativity and my capabilities." As the second phase of humanity's preparation began, people around the world started volunteering for the Legacy Project. Engineers brought wild ideas that seemed impossible. Scientists proposed theories that broke known laws of physics. Artists suggested designs that defied logic, but somehow felt right. The Guardian absorbed every suggestion, every crazy human notion, and began the slow process of transforming itself from a memorial to the dead into something unprecedented. Weapon forged by human imagination and alien science working as one. The Devourers expect to find another civilization like all the others, the Guardian mused to Dr. Park as she worked late one night. They will find something they have never encountered before. They will find humanity. 2 years into the project, the Legacy had become unrecognizable from its original form. What had once been a sleek alien vessel now resembled something that belonged in a human engineer's fever dream. The Guardian had learned to think like humanity, and the results were both terrifying and beautiful. Lieutenant Mark Taylor stood in what used to be the ship's main corridor, now transformed into something that looked like a living organism made of metal and light. Cables pulsed with energy like veins, and the walls seemed to breathe. "I still can't believe this thing works," he muttered to his companion. Sergeant Kate Wilson, one of the first human Guardian interface specialists, laughed. "You should see the weapon systems. Remember when Jimmy suggested we use asteroid belts as ammunition?" Taylor shuddered. The Guardian had taken that casual comment from a drunk engineer and turned it into reality. The ship could now grab entire asteroid fields and compress them into projectiles that hit with the force of dying stars. It was the kind of weapon that made no sense to alien logic, but somehow worked perfectly. In the central command chamber, Dr. Park watched as the latest batch of human volunteers interfaced directly with the Guardian systems. The AI had developed neural connection ports that allowed humans to share their thoughts and dreams directly with its vast consciousness. What emerged from these sessions consistently surprised everyone. "Guardian, show General Hayes the latest design," Dr. Park requested. The holographic display activated, showing a weapon system that defied every known law of physics. It appeared to be a massive flower made of crystallized space-time, with petals that could fold reality around enemy ships and crush them out of existence. "This came from the mind of a 6-year-old girl," the Guardian explained proudly. "She drew a picture of a flower that could hug bad things until they went away. I have spent 3 months figuring out how to make her drawing function as a weapon of war." General Hayes rubbed his temples. A child's drawing became a reality warping weapon. Human creativity operates outside the boundaries of what should be possible, the Guardian continued. This is why the Devourers will fail. They cannot predict weapons born from imagination rather than logic. Captain Cole entered the chamber carrying reports from the outer system monitoring stations. "Guardian, we're detecting unusual energy. Signatures at the edge of the solar system. It might be advanced scouts." The mood in the room changed instantly. Everyone had known this day would come, but 47 years had seemed like such a long time when they started. The Guardian's voice carried a note of grim satisfaction. Then it is time to test our preparations. Legacy, begin final transformation sequence. The ship around them began to change more dramatically than ever before. Walls flowed like liquid, reforming into configurations that hurt human eyes to look. Act directly. The vessel expanded, incorporating chunks of nearby asteroids and space debris into its structure. Within hours, the Legacy had grown from a 2-kilometer ship into something the size of Earth's moon. "What are you becoming?" Dr. Park asked in wonder. "I am becoming what humanity has made me," the Guardian replied. "I am becoming hope armed with impossibility." The ship's new form defied description. Parts of it existed in multiple dimensions. Simultaneously, weapon ports opened that led to pocket universes where different laws of physics applied. The hull was covered with symbols that were half alien technology and half human graffiti, including a massive painting of Earth's flag and the words "Come and Take It," written in letters visible from Orbit.Engineer Chun, now the chief integration officer, monitored the transformation from the new bridge. All human-inspired systems are online. The playground is ready. The playground had been humanity's wildest contribution to the ship. Instead of traditional weapon systems, they had created a space where the laws of reality were suggestions rather than rules. Human imagination could manifest directly as weapons, defenses, or impossible solutions to tactical problems. "Incoming transmission from the scout vessels," Communications Officer Dave Brown announced. "They're demanding our surrender." The message played through the ship's speakers. The voice was cold, mechanical, utterly without emotion. Primitive. "Species, you will cease resistance. Your world will be consumed. Your people will become part of the collective. Compliance is inevitable." A strange sound echoed through the ship. It took everyone a moment to realize the Guardian was laughing. "Guardian?" Dr. Park asked uncertainly. "They called us primitive," the Guardian explained, its voice filled with something that sounded remarkably human. "After 2 years of learning from humanity, they called us primitive." "Do you know what your species calls that?" Commander Rivers grinned. "Famous last words." The Legacy began moving toward the edge of the solar system, carrying with it weapons that existed only because humans had imagined them into being. The Devourers were about to encounter something unprecedented in their millions of years of conquest, a species that turned fantasy into reality and made the impossible seem reasonable. "Let's show them what primitive looks like," General Hayes ordered. The war for humanity's survival was about to begin. The Devourer fleet emerged from dark space like a nightmare given form. 500 massive vessels, each one a kilometer of twisted metal and malevolent energy, arranged themselves in perfect formation around Earth's solar system. They had done this dance 1,000,000 times before across the galaxy. They expected another quick victory. They were wrong. The Legacy met them at the orbit of Neptune, and the Devourer's first mistake was assuming they understood what they were looking at. Their scanners detected a single vessel, moon-sized, but apparently defenseless. Their databases contained no records of such primitive construction, surviving even their lightest weapons. Commander Rivers stood in the Legacy's bridge, which now resembled a cross between a military command center and a child's playroom. Humans sat at stations that looked like video game consoles, their minds linked directly to weapon systems that existed purely because someone had imagined them hard enough. "They're powering up their primary weapons," reported Officer Brown, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what they faced. "Guardian, activate the Murphy Protocol," General Hayes ordered calmly. What happened next would have been impossible to explain to any rational species. The Legacy began doing things that violated basic physics so casually that the Devourers' sensors couldn't process the data. The first Devourer ship fired a beam that could atomize planets. The Legacy caught it in what appeared to be a giant baseball. mitt made of crystallized spacetime, wound up like a pitcher, and threw it back twice as hard. The beam punched through 3 Devourer vessels before dissipating. "Direct hit," shouted Private Sam Jones from his station. The rubber wall defense worked perfectly. The Guardian's voice carried genuine amazement. "I still cannot believe that technique functions. A child's game of catch should not be applicable to stellar warfare." The Devourers tried to adapt, as they always did. They had consumed civilizations that wielded dark matter like clay and bent gravity to their will. But every adjustment they made only seemed to make things worse. When they deployed their reality-crushing weapons, the Legacy responded with the fairy tale protocol. Suddenly, the vacuum of space was filled with enormous butterflies made of pure energy, fluttering around Devourer ships, and somehow causing their hulls to transform into flower petals that drifted harmlessly away. "Who came up with the butterfly idea?" Captain Cole asked, watching in disbelief as enemy dreadnoughts became gardens. "A poet from Nebraska," Dr. Park replied. "She said butterflies represent transformation and new beginnings." The Guardian took that literally. The Devourer fleet began to panic, something that hadn't happened in their species' recorded history. They fired everything they had, weapons that had destroyed entire star systems. The Legacy responded by opening what appeared to be an enormous umbrella made of compressed starlight, which not only blocked the attacks, but somehow redirected them into forming a giant smiley face in space. "The enemy appears confused," Officer Brown reported unnecessarily. As Devourer ships were now flying in random patterns, their formation completely broken. But humanity wasn't finished. The Guardian activated the playground, and suddenly the space around Neptune became a realm where human imagination had physical force. Engineer Chun's childhood fantasy of piloting a giant robot made of planets became reality, stomping through enemy formations. A kindergarten teacher's drawing of a rainbow that could carry people to safety manifested as an actual bridge of light that began relocating fleeing alien escape pods to safety. The Devourer command ship, larger than any of the others, tried one final gambit. It began to consume the light of nearby stars, growing stronger as it prepared to detonate in a blast that would sterilize the entire solar system. "Guardian," General Hayes said quietly, "initiate the human spirit protocol." "Are you certain?" the Guardian asked. "That protocol has never been tested at this scale. Do it." What happened next was the most impossible thing in a day full of impossibilities. The Legacy began broadcasting something the Devourers had never encountered in millions of years of conquest. Hope, not as an emotion, but as a physical force. Human hopes and dreams, collected from 8 billion people over 2 years, suddenly became a wave of pure possibility that swept through space. Where it touched Devourer ships, impossible things began happening. Weapons transformed into musical instruments. War machines became gardens. The command ship's doomsday charge turned into the largest fireworks display in galactic history. The surviving Devourers found themselves experiencing something their species had forgotten eons ago: wonder. Their ship's sensors detected impossible readings. Beauty where there should be destruction. Creation where they had brought only consumption. The Guardian's voice echoed across the battlefield. "This is what you missed in all your conquests. This is what makes species like humanity dangerous to you. We don't just survive, we dream. And sometimes we make those dreams real." The Devourer fleet began to retreat, their formation scattered, their purpose shaken. For the first time in their history, they had encountered something they couldn't consume or understand: the sheer illogical persistence of human imagination. The silence after the battle was deafening. 300 Devourer ships hung motionless. In space, their crews experiencing emotions they had forgotten existed. The remaining 200 had fled beyond the outer rim, carrying with them stories that would spread terror throughout their empire for the first time in millennia. Commander. Rivers stood on the Legacy's observation deck, watching his human rescue ships approach the disabled Devourer vessels. "I still can't believe we're doing this," he said to Dr. Park, who stood beside him monitoring the rescue operations. "What? Saving them?" Dr. Park smiled. "It was inevitable. This is what humans do." The Guardian's voice filled the deck with something that now sounded unmistakably human, pride mixed with wonder. "In all my databases, in all the Maker's recorded history, no species has ever responded to victory this way. You won, and your first instinct is to help those who tried to destroy you." The rescue operations had begun immediately after the last enemy ship had powered down its weapons. Human medics, engineers, and scientists were boarding Devourer vessels, providing aid to creatures who had been their mortal enemies moments before. Many of the alien beings were experiencing physical sensations they hadn't felt in eons: curiosity, confusion, and something their translators could only identify as hope. General Hayes joined them on the observation deck, carrying reports from the boarding teams. "It's remarkable," he said, shaking his head. "According to our xenobiologists, these beings haven't been individuals for thousands of years. They've been parts of a hive mind focused only on consumption. But exposure to the human spirit protocol seems to be awakening their suppressed personalities. Through the deck's transparent walls, they could see the most impossible sight of all. Devourer beings, creatures the size of buildings that had terrorized the galaxy, were being taught human games by children who had volunteered for the cultural exchange program. A massive alien warrior was carefully learning to play hopscotch from a 7-year-old girl named Emma, while its shipmates watched in fascination. Captain Cole approached the group with a communication device. "We're getting reports from across their fleet. The Devourers are asking questions, not demanding surrender or threatening destruction, asking questions. They want to know about music, art, why humans laugh, what dreams are." The Guardian processed this information with systems that now included human intuition alongside alien logic. They are remembering what they were before they became Devourers. The human spirit protocol didn't just confuse them. It awakened something they had buried under millions of years of conquest. Dr. Park watched as a group of human artists began teaching Devourer engineers how to paint. The aliens' first attempts were crude, but the joy on their faces, or what passed for faces in their species, was unmistakable. "Guardian, what were they called before they became the Devourers?" According to the oldest Maker records, they were called the Gardeners. The Guardian replied softly. "They cultivated life throughout the galaxy, helping species grow and flourish. Something changed them, made them consume instead of create. The Makers never discovered what." Engineer Chun's voice crackled over the comm system from one of the Devourer ships. "Command, you need to see this. We've accessed their historical databases. The transformation wasn't gradual. Something traumatic happened to their entire species about 2 million years ago. Their home worlds were." "Wait, that's impossible." "What did you find?" General Hayes demanded. "Their home worlds were destroyed by something they call the Great Emptiness. According to their records, it consumed everything, not just matter and energy, but hope, dreams, imagination, everything that made life worth living. The Devourers became what they are because they thought that was the only way to survive." The realization hit everyone simultaneously. The Devourers hadn't been conquerors. They had been refugees, fleeing from something so terrible that they had transformed themselves into the very thing they feared. "Guardian," Dr. Park said quietly, "is this great emptiness still out there?" Ancient AI paused before responding. Based on galactic energy patterns and the Devourer's historical data, yes. It moves slowly, but it moves. And if my calculations are correct, it will reach this sector of the galaxy in approximately 1,000 years. The observation deck fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. They had just won an impossible victory against an unbeatable enemy, only to discover the enemy had been running from something even worse. Then Lieutenant Taylor began to laugh. It started as a chuckle, but grew until his shoulders shook with mirth. Soon, Dr. Park was giggling, and then General Hayes was smiling despite himself. "What's so funny?" Commander Rivers asked. Taylor wiped tears from his eyes. "Don't you see? We've got 1,000 years to prepare. And now we have allies who know exactly what we're facing. Plus, we've got the legacy, human imagination, and a bunch of former Devourers who just remembered how to dream." The Guardian's voice carried unmistakable amusement. "The great emptiness has consumed hope from 1,000,000 worlds. But it has never faced a species that can create hope from nothing and teach it to their former enemies." Outside the observation deck, human children continued teaching alien warriors how to play, while artists and scientists from two species worked together to plan for a threat that wouldn't arrive for a millennium. Humanity had turned a derelict starship into the ultimate weapon. But their greatest achievement wasn't destroying their enemies. It was turning them back into friends. The universe was about to learn what happened when humans had 1,000 years to prepare for the impossible. The END.